Okay, I'm going to read this from UFOB by Toxic Toy. So for Jacques, during the Soul Foundation's last monthly Soul Forum, you mentioned that there had been plans to attempt two-way communication with the quotes control system unquote with a panel of linguists and other experts. This never came to fruition. Can you please speak a bit more about this endeavor and why it was important to the experiment to determine if there is two-way communication or if it is only one direction from the control system to us? Have there been other attempts that showed some elements of two-way communication, and how is this different than direct communication with NHI?
So you have to approach those things with, a little bit of humor. And here I'm going to jump into Jeff's area in terms of the history of religion. I have a book. I've been interested in that topic for a long time, and I've bought a whole bunch of books. And I have a book about the theology of angels, which was written in the early 19th century for seminarians about the architecture of the control system of God, which is described in a number of religious books. Um, God doesn't communicate with angels. Uh, God essentially radiates a truth, and that truth is picked up by the archangels and all the different layers of communication inside the celestial system, and it gets to the angels. So the angels get the illuminated by God. A few human beings have been illuminated by God and recorded in the religious literature. One of them fled and has never been heard of before. Afterwards, one got completely mad, and one just retreated into silence. That's what in religious texts. That's the anecdotal side of that. An angel can communicate with another angel. So they can communicate in their level to organize certain actions about people or the world. But no angel can communicate with God. The whole thing is, I was fascinated with that because in a way it's the structure of the internet. Okay? Then the internet has clusters of and classes of devices that can communicate with each other in different ways. Some of them have only access to certain things, and some of them have access to everything. So, and I was really looking at this in terms of communication systems in general, but religion offers us a perfect example of, what is the language, what is the logic, how does it go from one level to the next, and so on. And those are absolutely amazing. So the problem here is, what is the communication and how are we going to study it? And yes, there are a number of projects that some of them are extensions of experiments to communicate with whales, which go back to the 60s or the 70s and so on, and were prominently done in Florida and in California and so on, and about whale communication and understanding the whale's language. The U.S. Navy has done a lot of work on that because they hear a lot of communication among whales and among other species, some of which they haven't identified yet. And those are extremely interesting. The, there is also communication, of course, with birds and with apes, which is very interesting. Now, what about the aliens? Well, the aliens control the communication, and it ranges from trivial to absurd. Most of it is through um, messages in the heads of witnesses who happen to be there. Some of it is alleged two-way communication, but the answers are usually not spoken. There are exceptions to that, but the answers are usually in in your head. You become conscious of the answer. How do we go beyond that, and how can we initiate communication with it? Which is, of course, a key question now. How do we call them, and how do we talk to them in a way that makes sense both to them and to us? And the experiments there, non non-vocal, as far as I know, but I'm not privy to the details of the communication. That's really all I know. I know Whitley Strieber has been very interested in that and has come to a similar conclusion to mine, but I haven't had a chance to discuss it with him yet.
Can I, Leslie? Can I speak to that?
Please.
Jacques brought up the history of religions and angels. Human beings have been communicating with non-human intelligences for forever, as far as we can see back. And the alien experience is this mind to mind or telepathic experience, as we call it today, is classic. By the way, it's classic, and we have a word for it, that was coined in the 19th century, telepathic. But the phenomenon itself has been known for many centuries. And when I talk to the experiencer community, this idea that we don't know what alien abductions are about or is really puzzling to them, because they've been communicated with extensively for many, many, many decades, and they can tell you all about what the voices are saying. And to boil it down to one of the questions before about ethics, there's two real anxieties that are expressed. One is around ecological collapse, and the other is around nuclear energy. And so I think these two moral anxieties are around this abduction phenomena in a really dramatic way. And I think someone like Whitley, who Jacques just mentioned, I mean, we can talk about the experiencer content, which is really bizarre and extraordinary. And I think that's why it gets rejected, or that's why it gets dismissed. But the content itself is seems to be wanting to be dismissed by 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 the reductionists or by the rationalists, as it were. So there's something about the experience that is also deceptive, and I don't mean sinister, I don't mean bad. If I were, let me just put it this way. If I were a future human, which I'm not, I'm a social ego like you, I would be really concerned about two things right now. I would be really concerned that human beings are gonna screw up the planet ecologically, and that they're gonna blow it up. And that's what you see when you look at these abduction experiences. You see this anxiety or this concern over and over and over again. So to me, that's the content, or that's part of the message. And then the other message that experiencers talk about endlessly is what John Mack called ontological shock. They really are being pushed towards a different conception of reality that is not scientific rationalism, but it's not also religious belief. It's something else. It's something that is weirder and more fundamentally strange than that. And so I think those three issues are really kind of key here. Those two moral anxieties and this sort of ontological shock that is pushing these experiences forward. And we don't know what that is, because we keep wanting to explain it in terms of our own worldview. We wanna quote unquote prove it, which means we just reduce it to our mathematics or our physics, or we wanna believe it, which means we've reduced it to something in our religious and our ancestors' religious worldview. And what I'm trying to say is, please don't do either of those things. Please listen to the experience, and let's be suspicious of it, but let's also take it very seriously.